Hey friends, today we're finally seeding tomato seeds. I'm so excited. I'm so proud of myself that I was actually able to wait until what we have right now is the first week of April, because I promised myself last year that I will start them later, and about 2 weeks later than I started mine last year, because when it was time to plant them out last year, they weren't that high. No fun at all to transplant tomato seedlings high like that. You have to dig a really deep hole or a large trench to put them in, so it wasn't fun at all. So for that reason, I wanted to really be deliberate with the timing this year and start them at the right time, which is this weekend. I'm so excited. So I'll go through the tomato varieties I am seeding today. I have already prepared our soil blocking mix that is just sitting there and just hydrating a little bit. I always love to let my soil block mix, after I've added the water, to just sit and soak it up. That makes the soil blocking a lot easier, and then I have the soil blocking material here already. We are not seeding a million tomatoes, even though I wanted to, but we're not eating that many tomatoes, right? I have a garden where I want to be cognizant of what my family eats here. So over the years that has adjusted. And last year was the first year where I actually planted out paste tomatoes. And boy, was the tomato sauce good with those tomatoes. So in the favor of more paste tomatoes, I actually dropped half of my indeterminate varieties. Yes, I love a good tomato sandwich, but in the end, most of our tomatoes actually go into tomato sauce. So therefore, I flipped the varieties a little bit towards the paste tomato varieties to just have the tomatoes for the purpose we use them here, right? So, but in the end, I grow 3 classes of tomatoes. One is cherry tomatoes, which grow over my arc in the summer. They can go wild and knock themselves out over there. I have 3 cherry tomatoes over there. That seems much for a family of 4 over here, but what I really enjoyed over this winter is to use my dehydrated cherry tomatoes in like stews and whatsoever. They tasted so good, and like really little teeny tiny flavor bombs of summer in the stews. So whatever we have left over in terms of cherry tomatoes, which we can't eat fresh, gets all dehydrated and stored for the winter, so I can enjoy those ones more. And yeah, so cherry tomatoes is one. The other ones are, of course, my indeterminate tomatoes. There, I had a hard time to choose, so we are doing something very interesting this year. We have 1 variety per plant. Usually I always like to have at least 2 in case something happens to one. You have a backup, but so what, right? So if one doesn't make it, I'll have next year another chance, right? So it's all right. So we have 6 varieties indeterminate, and then my determinate one where we have the need of 7 plants, and this goes over 3 varieties. So let's look a little bit at the varieties we are seeding here today. So my cherry tomatoes. So if you have watched any of my other videos so far, you know that I'm a huge fan of Row 7 Seed Company. They are a really teeny tiny boutique seed company. I think they have in total like just 15 varieties or so, or 20. But what they do and what makes them special is they breed their varieties for taste. So, and I tried the squash variety last year, the center cut squash, and let me just tell you, I'm not ever growing zucchini again. That squash was delicious. It had taste, nutty flavor, stored well, and was the most productive thing ever. And the best of all things, the squash vine borer doesn't care about that squash, so it's perfection. So for that reason, and as the taste was so incredible, I wanted to grow as many seeds from that seed company this year. So we have 1 in the cherry category and 1 in the determinant category from Row 7, where I'm really proud that I got my hands on them because they sell fast. The first one is Sweet Prince. I don't think Row 7 actually classifies it as a cherry, but judging by this size, I think it's perfectly fine in the cherry category in terms of size. So I'm really curious how that will taste. The next one is a botanical interest one. This is the Sweetie. I heard much about it, that it's supposed to be really productive and really sweet, as the name suggests. So I'm really curious to see that. And then one I grew last year, which made it to my forever grow list, is the Sungold. And the Sungold, I know a lot of people rage about it because it's so good, but after I tried it yesterday, I have to line up with those people because it is actually so good. I would argue it's the most perfectly balanced tomato flavor you can get. It's not too acidity, not too sweet. It has a nice crunch. The only little downside, I would argue, later in the season or when you get rain or so, they crack very easily, unfortunately. So that was the only downside I had. Otherwise, bonkersly productive as well. I really enjoyed that one. So that is a repeat. So looking at the indeterminate varieties, here I have actually 3 which are special as well, and I'm also excited to try those ones out. They are actual dwarf varieties. So don't mix that up with those little teeny tiny pot tomatoes. That's not it. What they are is they don't grow like unlimited high or tall as your other indeterminate tomatoes. So they're supposed to grow, I think, like they should max out on a 6 feet size, but are supposed to be still very productive and yielding. So I'm really curious to see that. And that would work perfectly with the trellis we have where they're growing on, like our lower and lean trellis, like they grow up at a string. So I'm really curious to see what their performance is and how they are doing. But I have 3 of those dwarf varieties from Tomato Fest. One is the Lemon Ice. This is also the only yellow tomato I'm trying this year, just to mix it up. Well, the Sungold is practically orange yellowy as well. So outside of the red ones, those are the 2 outliers, I would argue. So the Lemon Ice. Then I have the Hannah's Price. And then the last one was Firebird Sweet. So I think it was Erin from the Impatient Gardener last year who was growing this and was like raging about it, how good it was. So I'm really curious to try that. And it was over the website also mentioned as one of the most tastiest in the dwarf varieties. So I'm curious. And then I also finally got my hands on the Cherokee Purple, which I wanted to try already for 2 years. Very excited. I know a lot of my garden friends swear on this one. And then the last 2 are repeats from the previous years. My Forever Grow one is the Black Krim. It just, for me, this is tomato sandwich perfection. Like, it's like the perfect taste and it's beautiful. It's, for me, they always have been productive. Last year, not as much as the year before. I'm curious to see what it does this year. I really love that one. So that's a Forever Grow one for me. And the one which I enjoyed last year just because of its gorgeous color formation and the gorgeous looks, and also the taste was amazing, the pink Berkley Tie Dye. So that's the repeat as well. So I can't wait to see those ones in my garden again. And now we're moving into the determinate varieties, so the paste tomatoes. And this is where I have the other row 7 varieties. So this is the Midnight Roma, which I'm really excited to see. There's also gorgeous color formation and supposed to be really dark also when you make a tomato paste out of, like a really rich red. So I can't wait to see that. And of course delicious supposedly, so I'll report back in a few. And then the one which stole my heart last year in the determinant, and that will probably forever grow for me as well, the Plum Perfect. When we have harvest in the summer of the Plum Perfect, you will see what I mean. It is truly the most perfectly shaped plum tomato you can, oof, all the bugs are out today. It's really the most perfectly shaped plum tomato you can think of, like just perfection. So the name is the game here. And then last but not least, the Amish Paste tomato, where I heard also a lot of good things for the size and the meatiness and really what a really great tomato to make tomato paste from. So I am excited. So how I'm starting this today. So as I have a lot of varieties but not many plants, I literally need per variety from my cherries and my indeterminate just one plant in the end. And I don't want to end up like with millions of seedlings like last year. Although last year I was already better. The year before I had way too many plants. So I'm getting better in like trusting my skill of raising seedlings and not going overboard with the ones I'm seeding, so that I'm not like sitting here on like, I don't know, 30 plus seedlings where I just need in total like, what is it, like 15 or so, right? So for that reason, I decided this year to grow just one extra per variety. Again, like when you start seedlings, think about how confident you are in your seed starting skills and your setup. I said to myself, if anything happens to any of those varieties, I'll just take a backup from the other ones, and it is what it is, right? Then I'll try next year again. So that works better also with the space I have available downstairs. So for that reason, I really want to be just cognizant of my garden, my needs, and not like having like 20 leftover seedlings which I don't need, and in the end try to find new homes for or dump them in the compost, right? So that feels wasteful, let's just say it like that. So for most varieties we just grow one extra, which will be a little bit tricky with the soil blocks. That's truly the only thing I am not in favor of soil blocking, is how you can label like soil blocks if you have just like two things in or two blocks for one thing. It makes it here a little bit difficult. So I usually, what I do is I stack them in between those two soil blocks. So just to be safe, to know which variety is in which block, I also going to mark that on my iPad. So I have here a little marker, which was perfectly fine until I smudged over it. But that is what suggests the front. So I'll have the front here, and then I'll just have those 25 blocks in here, and we'll mark them accordingly on my iPad as well, so that we know where is going what, just to be safe. And yeah, I have a couple extras for the paste tomatoes, and then yeah, let's get started here. What I'm using today is my 1.5 inch soil blocker with a 5 blocks output, and I can put 25 in this one. And what we will need for all of it is like 25 in here plus 4 in each of the small ones, so we'll do that quickly. You want to help me? So what I always do is I'll have a list of which varieties I want to seed today, how many I need, and how many I want to seed extra. So for example, for the Midnight Roma, I want to have 2 plants, so I'm seeding 4, which is going to be one of those ones, and the Amish Paste the same. For everything else, I just seed another Plum Perfect is 1 row of 5 because I need 3, and everything else is just 1. Just helps you when you get started to make sure that you know what you're doing, and yeah, that you have your count down to what you actually need, right? So let's get started. And then, so let's make that the Plum Perfect. And then I just organize what is going. That just helps it. I hope the wind won't blow my seeds away, but it was a lot worse this morning, so I'm glad it turned around again. So I'll keep the rest in here for now. So let's get going with the Amish Paste. The nice thing with those little containers is you just plop the label in here and you're good to go. So I'm really curious about this one. And typically I use 2 seeds per cell, just to make sure I get really 1 seedling in every block, and then thin them down to 1 once I have them. Need 1 more. Okay. Yeah, once I'm done, always put that aside so that I'm not mixing anything up. Put that one to the side.